Good evening and welcome back to Ballot Meridian. This debate is the Meridian Township debate with the trustees, Board of Trustees, live here on HOMTV. My name is Eric Sherman and tonight is October 25th. And we want you to participate in this debate by calling in with your questions to 517-349-1232. You can also tweet or Facebook questions to us at HOMTV using the hashtag BallotMeridian. For the next hour, you have the opportunity to direct the questions, so please do call in. I'm sorry, I need to give a program note that it's actually 2 hours, not for the next hour. This is a 2-hour debate, isn't it? And so please fill our times with questions. The phone lines are going to go live now, and tonight we have the Meridian Township Trustee race, and we welcome the candidates running for the Board of Trustees. We welcome Republican candidates Brian Czubak, Debra Lee Piper, and Jared S. Wilson, as well as Democratic candidates Phil Deschaine, Patricia Herring-Jackson, Dan Opsommer, and Kathy Ann Sundland. So the phone lines are now open. Call in with your questions. Again, 517-349-1232 for this 2-hour debate, or tweet or Facebook using the handle HOMTV, using also the hashtag BallotMeridian. If you want to ask a question, though, of our candidates, it must be phrased in such a way that all of the candidates can answer the question and not just directed at one particular candidate. I want to thank the candidates for joining us this evening, and we are going to start off with a 30-second introduction, beginning alphabetically by the last name and following through with that. So I will start now with Mr. Brian Czubak.
My name is Brian Czubak, running for Meridian Township Board Trustee. I'd like to thank HOMTV for having me, and thank the residents and voters for watching this evening. I was born and raised in Meridian Township, and after graduating from East Lansing High School and Michigan State University, I joined the United States Marine Corps as an officer, where I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I live in Okemos, Michigan with my beautiful wife, Sarah, my 2 beautiful daughters, who are currently going to be staying up late tonight to watch this. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much. Mr. Phil Deschaine.
Hello, I am Phil Deschaine, a candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. I want to thank the voters as well for this chance to introduce myself and talk about some important issues tonight. 25 years ago, I built a home here in Meridian Township, and I've raised my 3 children, Marianne, Phil, and Elizabeth, all who graduated from Hazlitt High School and benefited from our high quality of life here. I have 30 years of professional experience and 20 years of community engagement. Those 2 things together make me well qualified to be your next trustee.
Patricia Herring-Jackson.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Herring-Jackson, and I've been a resident of Meridian Township for the last about 30 years. For 16 years, I've served as a member of the Planning Commission in Meridian Township, and for the last 4, I've also served as a Planning Commission representative to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm in this race to help lead Meridian Township into its future, while at the same time protecting its values and its shared assets.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dan Opsommer.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to the folks here at HOMTV for putting on yet another forum. My name is Dan Opsommer, born and raised here in the Greater Lansing area. My wife and I live in Hazlitt, and I work professionally in the Michigan House of Representatives. Previously worked for Mark Meadows when he served as our state representative, and have since worked for 2 of his former colleagues, serving as their legislative directors. In the community, I'm active in the Hazlitt Beautification Association, Meridian Recycling.
Thank you very much. Debra Lee Piper.
Hi, I'm Debra Lee Piper, and I'm a sales specialist at Macy's. The duty of a trustee is to pay attention, ask questions, and make decisions. You have 4 votes for trustee. I hope you will use 1 of your votes for me. I give you my solid commitment that I will make the best decisions for the people of Meridian Township.
Kathy Ann Sundland.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ann Sundland. I'm a Democratic candidate for Meridian Board Trustees. And again, I thank HOMTV for having us here. I've lived in the community for 35 years. I've built 2 homes. I've raised 2 children in Hazlitt, who then went on to graduate from Michigan State University. I'm now retired from the state of Michigan, and I'm ready to give back to my community.
Thank you. And Jared S. Wilson.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the citizens for watching this right now, and anyone else who's watching. I'd like to thank everybody in my life who's gotten me to this point. It's been a short life so far, but it's going to be a long one. But most importantly, I would like to thank God, because without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. I was praying that he would give me something that I can do and that I'd feel comfortable doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, while we wait for your calls, tweets, and Facebook messages, I have a standard list of questions with which I will begin. For this debate, each candidate has 1 minute to answer the question, and when all candidates have answered the question, then we will allow anyone who has a desire a 30-second rebuttal. We will begin alphabetically with the last name, and then alternate through, and then alternate who begins with each question after that. So, that begins, and my first question for you is, explain how your education and professional background makes you the ideal candidate, or one of the ideal candidates, for the Township Trustees. And we start alphabetically, Mr. Czubak.
So my education was in social science from Michigan State University. After that, I went to what some people would argue is one of the top leadership schools in the world, if not the country, which is the United States Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. I led men in difficult situations outside of the country and was able to make quick decisions in a timely manner. So I feel that my experiences there significantly helped me to fill this role properly. On top of that, since I got out of the Marine Corps, I served worked with Fortune 500 companies for the past 11 years in both sales, marketing, as well as management positions.
Thank you. Phil Deschaine.
Thank you. I have a bachelor's degree in liberal arts from the University of Michigan, and I've got 30 years of IT professional experience selling various software programs to countries across the country. That experience has shown me the different parts of the country, and every time I come back home to Meridian Township, I say, you know, we've got a great community here, and there's no place I'd rather be than here. I've been offered transfers to Dallas, to Arizona, to California, and I've stayed here. I'm very happy I stayed here. In my professional experience, I've had the chance to do community outreach, and in doing that, I've gotten to know the important value of service clubs, giving back to our communities, using mentoring programs, and really doing the best we can as professionals to engage our youth, to prepare them for the future, and enrich our communities with the many professional skills found in the business community.
Patricia Herring-Jackson.
Well, I came to Michigan about 30 years ago to work at Michigan State University, and so very recently I retired from my job there as a biological researcher and a teacher. My bachelor's degree is in organic chemistry, my PhD is in biochemical pharmacology. Since retirement, and even before retirement, I have been working with the township in the capacity of a planning commissioner, and so I have focused on land use issues particularly, and other ways in which the Planning Commission helps the township provide the service that it does and to organize the development and growth of the township. And so I think those qualities, those experiences qualify me well for this position.
Dan Opsommer.
Thank you for the question, Eric. Professionally, I serve as the Chief of Staff to State Representative Jim Townsend, so a great deal of public policy experience. I work on legislation at the Capitol every day. Previously served 2 former members of the House. And then in the community, I serve on the Planning Commission with Patricia Jackson as well. So right now we're working on the Master Plan update, which is one of the most important documents that the township maintains. It informs all of our land use decisions, so very practical experience for serving on the board. And also active civically in the community. I'm the president of the Kiwanis Club, active in the Hazlet Beautification Association and Meridian Recycling, and bring a wealth of knowledge and experience here in the township that I think is very vital and would be of great use to the township.
Thank you. Debra Lee Piper.
Hi, I have a bachelor's degree in marketing from Michigan State University, and I have worked at Michigan State University full-time for 32 years. And I have 21 years of retail experience. I am very well trained in customer service, in public service, and I want to give back to this community, and I consider that the Meridian residents are like customers, and I want to serve these customers in Meridian Township. So this is what I'm going to offer to the members or to the residents of Meridian Township as their trustee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Ann Sundland.
Yes, thank you. I am a graduate of Michigan State University. I graduated from the Eli Broad Business College in Human Resources. I worked for the Credit Bureau in Lansing for 10 years, and then I went on to be a branch manager for Victor Temporary Services. And for the last 26 years, I've been in Human Resources for the state of Michigan. And Human Resources in the state of Michigan, we were the problem solvers. If somebody received a new appropriation, we were the ones helping them figure out their organizational structure. So I'm used to working with both Democratic and Republicans on both sides, being a problem solver. So that's what I would bring to Meridian Township, is my research skills and working cooperatively, no matter which side you're on, Democratic or Republican, and problem solving.
Thank you. And Jared S. Wilson.
Thank you. I do not have too much experience. I've just recently graduated from Okemos High School in the area. It was just this past summer, actually. And I've also been going to the early college at Lansing Community College for the past about 2, almost 3 years. And I'll be graduating it here in May with an associate's degree in political science. I plan to transfer then to go get another degree, in which I'm currently looking at many different degrees. I can't decide. But that's a lot of my experience. I've gone there and I've done a few extracurricular clubs at Okemos, and I've been just going around working with people the best I can. I've been told I've been a people person for a long time.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody want to rebut somebody else's experience? Or all right. Just had to ask. We have Gail. We have our first call. Gail from Okemos is on the line. Go ahead, Gail, with your question.
Oh, thank you. Hi, good evening. I would like to know how everyone feels about special voted millages in Meridian Township, like the Parks millage and the Land Preservation millage.
Okay, thank you for that question, Gail. And we start with Democrat Phil Deschaine for that.
The special limited millages are an excellent way for township residents to support and pay for the services and the facilities they want. Right now, we have got 75 miles of bike trails. We have got 700 acres of land preservation land and over 900 acres of parks in 19 different parks in Meridian Township. These are assets that we should be very proud of. Other special millages have been used for things like Ready Ride and the most recent Parks millage, which has enabled us to do innovative things. For example, we have a deer problem in Meridian Township. We can address that deer problem because of the Parks millage, which has enabled us to start a deer management program, one of the first in the country. So the special millages are limited, time limited, and they enable the township residents to vote with their feet as to what things they think are important, support those, because we have a very generous community, and our special millages show that generosity.
Thank you. Democrat Patricia Herring-Jackson, same question.
Thank you. I also think that the special millages are an excellent way for the township to provide the services and address the interests of its residents, partly because millages tend to be very well defined. They are time limited, and as the millage runs out, we have an opportunity to reassess our plans, our goals, and so forth, and then reauthorize the millage. And so I think it's a great way to address particular specific interests of the township residents. Yeah.
Thank you. Democrat Dan Opsommer.
Well, thank you, Gail, for your question back at home. So I also think they're a good reflection on what the community values and what priorities we hold. So specifically with the parks millages, we have 2 overlapping millages right now, and that was a decision that the voters made at the ballot box, and that has enabled us to make large capital investments in our parks. You know, Hillbrook Park just had the tennis courts overhauled. Those are frequently used. I live in that neighborhood. New playgrounds throughout many of the parks in the community, and we're working on a new Central Park. With the land preservation millage, we actually, we were the first municipality in the entire state to have a land preservation millage. So a millage solely dedicated to putting land in the public trust. And that has actually enabled us to protect certain neighborhoods where development may have occurred adjacent to a neighborhood and residents expressed concerns about that. And we were able to put that land into the public trust and prevent that from happening.
Okay. Republican Debra Lee Piper.
I support special millages and how it will benefit the residents of Meridian Township. Thank you.
Democrat Kathy Ann Sundland.
Yes, and I support the special millages. I'm thinking the way they even got on the ballot is somebody brought it up to the community. We could have just put in some dollars in the budget, but what the special millage allows the residents of Meridian Township to do is vote on whether that's what they want. And it's for a limited time so that it can expire, and like Patricia said, they can reassess and then vote on it again. So I think it gives the township residents more choice to have a special millage.
Republican Jared S. Wilson, same question.
Well, I do have to agree. I support the special millages, and for probably some of the same reasons as just previously stated, is the fact that it gives the people the ability to vote. And so we could put it in a budget, and the people serving, well, the trustees could be going against what the citizens want. And I believe it is better to have the citizens to be actual to vote on it right there at the polls. And thank you.
And Republican Brian Czubak.
Gail, thank you for your question. First of all, these are a useful tool when the budget does not allot for whatever it is that is looking to fund, if you will. In the past, I voted for some, I voted against others. As far as the parks, certainly I voted for that one. I've got a young family, and I want this place to remain as it is. It all depends on what the millage is for, whether or not I would agree with it or not. Quite frankly, we have some extremely generous voters here in the Meridian Township, and I think that we have more millages than some places because of that, because we care about our community and we want to keep it that way. So,
30 seconds rebuttal. Anybody have additional comments? Mr. Opsommer.
Yeah, I would just add real briefly that some of the special millages enable us to actually bring state dollars home, so state tax dollars that we've paid out, whether it be sales, income, or excise taxes. One example is Natural Resource Trust Fund grants. We frequently apply for and secure Natural Resource Trust Fund grants in order to purchase land preservations. And if we didn't have that dedicated funding here in the community, that wouldn't be possible.
Mr. Deschaine.
As Park Commissioner, I want to back up what Dan just said. Before the previous park millage was passed, the Park Commission really couldn't even apply for a lot of funds because almost all of the existing park millage, which is about to expire, was used for operations, maintenance, and the like. There was no new money for new development. Now that we've got the generous park millage, we can apply for state grants because we've got the matching funds we need to be eligible for those state grants. So in essence, it doubles the millage effectiveness.
Anyone else? All right. We have another call. We have Georgia from Okemos. Georgia, what's your question?
Hi, yeah, thanks for taking my call. Does the township have any impact on our 4 school systems, and please explain.
Okay. And for this one, we start with Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. The township, and particularly in things like its land use decisions and land use policies, do in fact support the school system by planning for the types of housing and other resources that are necessary to bring families with children of the age for our school systems into the area to go to these schools. There are other assets that the township provides for the general quality of life also support the quality of the education that our students provide and the resources in our township that the schools can use in helping to educate our children.
Mr. Opsommer?
Thank you, Georgia. Great question. So we have Proposal A in Michigan. It was passed in 1994, and under Proposal A, we're really at the mercy of the state as it relates to K-12 funding. If the legislature dictates that we're going to get a $50 increase in our per-student funding, then that's what it will be. Our school boards don't have a say in that. The only way to ensure the vitality and the excellence of our schools is to ensure that we have consistent enrollment. So when you look at schools that have come under hard times, it's because their enrollment is fluctuating or declining. And so land use decisions and what kind of housing stock we have determines how many students we generally have in the township, and we do have an aging population. So one of the ways that we can actually benefit that, and we've done that in the master plan, is to provide for the housing that will bring new students in and allow people to retire in place here in the community without affecting our school systems.
Ms. Piper?
Hi, Georgia. Thank you for the question. What I would do is do a lot of research to find out how the township is impacting the school system. I would want to look at the standards that are in place at the schools. Since I'm not as familiar, I would want to do my research and get the facts before I would make a decision. But I would always support the school system and the quality of education within Meridian Township. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, thank you for your question. And Meridian Township has impact on our schools simply by we're offering our parks, our recreation. I know our students go to the different nature centers for science. They go to Lake Lansing to test water quality in their science classes. Everything we do in Meridian Township has an impact on the schools. Drawing people into the community, bringing businesses into the community, which then bring in their children. So everything really has an impact. Are we changing zoning for something? Are we doing deer management right next to our schools, or whatever businesses are going on? It all impacts. It's all interlocking. So thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, thank you very much for the question. To be honest, I don't really know too much about it. So I can't really give much of an answer. I do apologize.
Mr. Czubak?
So the school board and the township board are two separate entities. And I'm sorry, thank you, Georgia, for your question. With that being said, we do influence them in ways that he's already brought up here. Our population is going to affect how many students are going to school and how much state funding we're going to get. The community we have in general, the parks we're using, things like that, are going to be utilized by the schools as well. I will say that once I'm elected, I will be definitely working with the school board as much as possible to make sure and maintain our 4 school systems stay at the top of the state like they are right now.
And Mr. Deschaine?
Yeah, the township does have some impact on our schools. Land use, as Dan and Pat pointed out, are very important. We have a master plan. We have areas for new development of new single-family homes, and we need that. In many ways, the township is the victim of its own success. A lot of families have raised children here. The children have moved out and moved on, but the adults don't want to move on. We're very comfortable here. It's a great community. So unless we add in a smart and limited way to our housing stock, our school populations and enrollments will flatten out and even decline. That's not good for our schools. Our schools are, the 4 school districts that serve the township residents are 4 of the best in the entire state. We need to preserve them, enhance them, work with them to make sure that they are successful. Another important thing to keep in mind is that our relationship with Michigan State is very important. Michigan State and Meridian Township are true partners. And by having such a vibrant, dynamic community, MSU can attract more faculty and saying this is a great place to live and raise a family.
Thank you very much. Anyone have a rebuttal? Ms. Jackson?
Yes, maybe not a rebuttal, but an addition. The township provides public safety elements, the police and fire, and these, the quality of those elements and services also contribute to the well-being of our schools and the quality of our schools.
Mr. Czubak, I thought I saw your hand go up.
It was as well, and it was just kind of something that we talked about. Not only I talked about it, but others as well. The population. I think we need to realize that we are such a great community that we're already having people. Once I live in an older neighborhood in Okemos, and we have a lot of people who were there originally. As they're getting older and they're moving out, younger families are moving in. So I think it's maintaining the great community that we already have that allows us to do that.
Anyone else? Mr. Opsommer.
I would just add, we are on the topic of our special millages, and we actually have several that impact our youth and our school systems. So recreational sports, we have recreational facilities that youth sports utilize, and that's township funded through our parks millage. And then we also have the pathway millage, which funds some of our major sidewalks along major roadways. So Kennewaw Drive got a safe crosswalk for Okemos students. That's another example of how we benefit our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Deschaine.
Many of our school districts are staying competitive and fiscally responsible by sharing certain positions. For the longest time, Hazlitt and Williamson shared the same business manager. I think the township can look into those similar relationships with school districts so that wherever possible, we can have a shared garage, shared services, so that both the township and the school district benefit by economies of scale, not having two duplicate garages or two duplicate fleets when it's just not necessary. We can work together with the schools and save both the school and the township money.
Anyone else? Okay. We have our first tweet of this debate, and it comes to us from, I believe, Ehezy. And the question is, what are the partisan issues in the township? Ehezy asks. And so for this one, we start with Mr. Opsommer.
Well, thank you to the resident at home that tweeted in the question. And I would say that we really don't have partisan issues. I would say that land use is the primary issue that the board deals with. That and the annual budget would be the primary responsibility of the board. And land use decisions are really not partisan. Whether we're trying to decide, should this be municipal use, should it be a library, or should it be a school system, or should it be single family housing or multifamily housing? And I don't think that really is a partisan issue. We're actually kind of unique in Michigan in that cities, and not many people know this, but cities have nonpartisan races as well as school boards. But under state law, township races are partisan, so we all declare a partisan affiliation. But I don't really see too many issues that cross the partisan lines.
Ms. Piper?
Thank you. I am not aware of any partisan issues in the Meridian Township. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sundland?
Yeah, I agree. I do not think that there's a real strong partisan divide in issues. I think in Meridian Township, one of the big issues right now is a lot of businesses wanting to come in and develop. And then that links to the master plan and the zoning and how do we want Meridian Township to go. And I think you're going to see both sides, both parties are very interested in that and bringing people into our community. So thank you. I don't see a lot of real strong divides.
Mr. Wilson, what's your take on partisan issues in Meridian Township?
Well, I do want to thank the voter for asking the question. I don't think there's really too many partisan issues. The only close to partisan you could, I think, draw a conclusion with would be, I can't remember when it was or if they're still doing it, but they were talking about the medical marijuana, and that does have some partisan, I guess you could say, a very slight partisan issue to that. So that might be the only thing that I'm aware that there would be one on.
Mr. Czubak?
I hope I'm saying this right, but Ehezy, thank you for your question. I don't see any issues with partisanship. I mean, this is the township level, and I don't see a need necessarily for partisanship at the township level. That being said, the only issues I see, and I hear this from people outside of Meridian Township, is the concerns over our current board and the factions or the infighting that goes on during our board meetings. That's been going for a while. In fact, when I decided to run for office for trustee, a lot of people brought that up to me and said, how are you going to learn to deal with that? I said, same as I always do, my leadership and being calm about it. We talked with everybody here, introduced myself a long time ago. I think one of our first meetings at Wardcliff neighborhood. We all got along very well, and we still do. And I think that's important to do this for the township. We're here to serve them, not serve ourselves.
Mr. Deschaine, same question.
I would agree with the other candidates. We do not have strong partisan issues on the township board, or at least we shouldn't have. The way to approach issues and challenges is not from a hardened partisan position, but from rather what is in the best interest of residents, what's in the best interest of small businesses. Having said that, I am a Democrat. I've been a lifelong Democrat. In fact, I moved to Lansing to work for U.S. Senator Don Regal. However, I got involved in local politics due to Republican trustee, long-serving trustee Andy Such. From that perspective, I think I can offer a balanced approach. So again, the way to move forward isn't with hardened partisan positions, but looking at the best interests of the voters and moving forward from that perspective, not political parties.
Ms. Jackson?
I think that I agree that the issues in Meridian Township are not partisan issues. But probably the most partisan thing about working for and with the township is the election of the representatives on the township board. However, I do agree, I do believe that the approaches that different party members or different ideologies bring to the issues often are very different. And a function of the board is to come to maybe not compromise, but a reasonable agreement about how to solve the issues or the problems that face the township.
And I already saw Ms. Sundland's hand go up, so did you want a rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. And I was just thinking that partisan aside, in Meridian Township, we need to really rely on our new master plan. We need to become educated on that. We need to rely on our commissions, our Planning Commission, our Parks Commission. We need to rely on their expertise because that's what they do. And so we need to not be real partisan. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Not a rebuttal, but just a comment on Mrs. Jackson. I agree with what she was saying, and I think that's where some issues now currently have. We're all going to have a vote on the board, or 4 of us will, I should say, and I think it's important to respect someone else's opinions, thoughts, and I agree with you that we need to come to a compromise and to agree on things together, especially what's best for the township.
Mr. Deschaine, did you?
Pat and Dan and I have run a platform of solving the issue that Brian pointed out, which is there is a lot of infighting on the current board and in past boards. We need to change that. We need a township board that reflects the values of our residents, that treats every resident, every business that comes before it with decency, respect, and an open mind. We need to be fair to everyone, and the township board can do that.
Anyone else? I'm sorry, I already gave you this rebuttal opportunity, but Mr. Opsommer.
I just wanted to say, in relationship to the discussion about the board and civility amongst the board and on the board and at board meetings, as a member of the Planning Commission and as a liaison to the Environmental Commission and watching many of our other boards and commissions, I see great working relationships across all manner of volunteers. All of our boards and commissions are volunteer-based, and they do a wonderful job of serving the community. So,
anyone else who hasn't had a rebuttal? All right. Well, you really missed an opportunity to go all partisan on a partisan question, but hey, it's your debate. We have another tweet, a tweet from Mads Schaetzel, I believe. And what do you think about the extra voted millage for trails and bicycle pedestrian pathways? And for this one, we start with Ms. Piper.
Okay, thank you for the question. I guess my response would be for the extra voted millage for trails and bicycle pedestrian pathways is this is a good leisure relaxation for our residents. It's very beneficial to the quality of life in Meridian Township, and I would support the extra voted millage for the trails and bicycle pathways. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, I think the key issue in this question is that it's a voted millage. So it is something that Meridian Township residents have said that they want. So that's what we need to be looking at as board trustees, is what do the citizens in this community want? I personally enjoy the trails and bicycle and pedestrian pathways. So again, I think the main issue here is that it was voted for. And if the Meridian citizens did not want it, they wouldn't vote for it.
Mr. Wilson.
Well, I don't really know too much on it, but I do know that was on one of the recent, I can't remember what it's called, the ballot that we had a few months back. Sorry about tripping over my words. I personally did not vote for it. I saw, I think it was 2 of them on there or something. I just didn't vote for it. I haven't found much of a use for it personally myself. But everybody else seems to be voting for it, or maybe not everybody else, but other people are. And so that's the reason for it. Is the reason it's up to a ballot is for the people to say what they want.
Thank you. Mr. Czubak?
Mads Faisal, thank you for the question. I don't know if I can go into too much detail besides I voted for it. And I believe my wife did as well. With our family here, we're happy to pay a little bit extra to enjoy the parks, the trails, all that stuff. That's about it.
Okay. Mr. Deschaine?
I think there's really two special millages that the question is asking about. Our bicycle path millage, which was passed, which is largely a maintenance millage to keep going what we've been doing to enhance our 75 miles of bike trails. But there was also a county millage that was passed for trail expansion 2 years ago. And as park commissioner, we fought hard to make sure that the money Meridian Township has sent to the county is coming back. And we just got a $400,000 grant to enhance bridges and other infrastructure in our current trail system here in Meridian Township. So that millage wouldn't have passed in the county if it were not for the Meridian Township voters who generously supported that millage. And so the Park Commission will continue to work hard to make sure we bring back much of that money to enhance our own trail system. And most exciting of all, to connect Lake Lansing to the river trail. And the plans are there for that, and we're hoping the county millage pays a big portion of that so that those residents who would prefer to travel to MSU and the businesses via non-motorized transportation can do so on this excellent trail system we have here in Meridian Township.
Ms. Jackson, your take on Mad's question.
Well, thank you for the question. I think that these are wonderful additions to our resources in Meridian Township, partly because as I have perceived over the last 16 years or so, the residents here value healthy living as much as possible. And the township believes that they should facilitate healthy living as much as possible to augment our transportation system so that it is multimodal. And so the provision of the opportunity to vote for these millages was made to improve on all of those opportunities for our residents.
And Mr. Opsommer.
Well, thank you to the resident at home for the question. So obviously this was this special millage was actually renewed in August. So this is actually one that's gone back several decades. The Planning Commission recently updated the master plan for our trails and pathways system. And this is another example where a community like Meridian, which is really a donor community to the state, can get bang for our buck. Because with the trail connection that Phil referenced, that's going to connect the river trail in the city of East Lansing to MSU. And then we're going to build the connection from the eastern border of MSU all the way to Lake Lansing Park. And we're going to put up a third through our trails and pathway millage. The county will put up a third, and the state is going to put up a third. So it's a way for us to get our tax dollars that have gone to the county and the state back in our community. And it's also, residents value it, I think, for the safety for children. Children can access our libraries and our school systems safely, and it gives them a way to go to school on their own.
Thank you. 30 seconds. Anybody want some additional thoughts, time? Okay. All right, great. We have a call. We have Steve from Okemos. Steve, what's your question for the candidates?
What kind of township experience do you have?
Okay, thank you, Steve. What kind of township experience do you have? And we start with Ms. Sundland for that one.
Okay, thank you for the question. And what I draw on is that I've been in the township for 35 years. And I had 2 children grow up in the school system, so I'm the sports mom. You name it, track, soccer, volleyball, basketball, and I learned, I've met a lot of people in the school district through that. I was also a Girl Scout troop leader, so I had a chance to connect with a great group of young ladies that are so successful now. We're talking dentists and lawyers and the such. So my township experience is mainly grassroots. I'm not real educated in local government at this point, but I'm learning, and I'm gonna bring a fresh look at what's going on in the township and hopefully help bring that grassroots, the people that have been talking to me for years, into the township.
I'm sorry. Mr. Wilson?
Well, thank you for asking the question, and it does kind of get back to one of the early questions asked a little bit about experience in general, but this narrows it down to the township. A lot of my experience, I guess, right now is currently I am taking a class on state and local government where I'm learning more and more about the inner workings of government and how it actually functions more. As to hands-on experience, much of it would be the grassroots, as I previously talked about. Where I've been out there walking, I've grown up in the township. I started in kindergarten, and I've gone all the way through up past high school now. I've been here for a while, and much of it is just, I've seen what the township is, and I can see what it can be in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Czubak?
So as far as this township, I have zero experience. However, thank you, Steve, for the question. When I was in Iraq, we took over a city called Al-Hay, and at the time it was an absolute mess. Basically, the local government and the Iraqi military had pulled out of it when we were coming in, and we had citizens that were in complete chaos. They were starving, there was looting going on, all this. So basically, we set up the government, we brought in the infrastructure with food, water. We organized the government for temporarily until things got settled. And then in the past 11 years, through my leadership in Fortune 500 companies, I've been in management. I've been in learning and setting up organizational structure, budgets, everything. So that's it.
Mr. Deschaine?
Thanks, Steve, for the question. Over 30 years ago, I was appointed to the Ingham County Housing Commission, which manages the Carriage Lane apartments on Dobie Road in the township, and it provides safe and affordable housing for low-income residents. 5 years ago, I was appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals and saw up close the way our ordinances and regulations can impact businesses and residents in the township. And then a couple years ago, I was appointed to the Parks Commission, and as Park Commissioner, I've helped lead the master plan redevelopment for Central Park. We're very excited about what's going on there. We're going to unify the several parks that make up Central Park into one unified park, widen the paths, make it more accessible for residents, and hopefully even move the farmers market, which is a victim of its own success now, from where it is now to across Central Park Drive with bigger pavilions, more parking, even more accessible to township residents than the current farmers market is. So I have vast experience in the township and look forward to serving as township trustee.
Ms. Jackson?
Thank you. As I've said before, I've lived in the township for close to 30 years. For the last 16 years, I've served on the Planning Commission, several times in leadership positions at that body. And for the last 4 years, I've also served as a representative to the Zoning Board of Appeals from the Planning Commission. This means actually that I have worked on 2 master plans, and am coming to the point of helping to complete the latest and move it on to the board for action and adoption. As a citizen, I have raised 3 children here, all of whom have attended the Opsommer school system, and just led a fruitful and successful life in Meridian Township.
Thank you very much. Mr. Opsommer?
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Steve, at home for the question. So one of the issues that I hear most frequently at the doors is what's going on with downtown Okemos and what's going on with the Village Square and Hazlitt. And as a member of the Planning Commission, that's actually something that we have focused on through our work on the master plan update, Pat and I have. So we've been working on creating kind of a blueprint and a vision for those areas and revitalizing those areas so that it's based on community input, not whatever a developer would wish to seek for those properties should they come forward with a plan. And that way we have leverage going into revitalizing those areas, making them more walkable, pedestrian friendly, and creating a great opportunity for small business in the community. So our newest business, I believe, is a craft brew pub. Wouldn't it be nice if we had nice retail space downtown Okemos with patio seating and everything for them to move into?
And Ms. Piper, you get last crack at Steve's question.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. My township experience involves living in the township for 21 years. I ran for park commissioner in the year 2008, and that was a wonderful experience. I guess that was probably my first experience with township elections. And I, at this point, want to be a positive force on the board to bring about improvement in Meridian Township and the quality of life here. And that's my purpose, is to bring the fresh ideas and to improve the township. Thank you.
All right, great. And does anyone have additional time that they want to take? Mr. Deschaine?
Dan mentioned being at the doors and talking to voters, and when I'm out there, people find out I'm on the park commission. They say, "Well, where's the dog park that we were all promised with the parks millage?" And I want to assure voters that the dog park is underway. We hope to break ground on the dog park next to Nancy Moore Park sometime this fall, and it'll be fully operational by next spring.
Okay, Ms. Sundland.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that in the last 6 months, I have attended several Meridian Township Board meetings and have watched their procedure, watched their process. I have seen the fighting, and gained a lot of knowledge about the whole Township Board meeting protocols and how they discuss issues. So, thank you.
Mr. Opsommer.
I just wanted to add one other piece to the puzzle, so to speak. So I work at the state capitol, and the legislature is currently working on legislation that would correct what's called the dark store theory, which is what some big box store retailers are using to undervalue their property and challenge their property tax assessment, which really hurts our libraries, our schools, and our township. So I bring a wealth of knowledge at the state level that's very pertinent to our township ordinances and township governance and our budget.
Anyone else? Okay, we go next to a tweet. Libby tweets, "What role do service clubs have in the community? What roles do service clubs have in the community?" Excuse me. And Mr. Wilson, we start with you.
Well, I do want to thank you very much for your question. It's a very good question. The service clubs, I'm assuming you mean like the Kinway and the other clubs like that. I cannot remember the other names off the top of my head right now. But they do a good role in the community. I've seen some of the roles personally. I think I read the newspaper a lot more than probably someone of my generation does. So I read stories on that, and they help out people one-to-one in the community. Thank you for the question.
Mr. Czubak?
I guess I'm confused on what service clubs mean to her. That's it.
Okay.
It wasn't clearly defined.
Okay. Mr. Deschaine?
I think by service club she means Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, clubs like that, and they play a very big role in the community. Recently in Hazlet, we were stuck in a very small 3,000 square foot library, and the library millage had been turned down by voters, and so that library was not serving the community at all. The Hazlet Kiwanis Club, which I was president of at the time, got involved. We raised we raised $20,000 towards a $100,000 goal we had set for private groups. The township kicked in some money as well, and now we're in a much better facility, probably 5 times the size of the old one, and that took a lot of service clubs, community volunteers, other community groups engaged to make it happen. I know the Rotary has done a lot to improve Harris Nature Park. I know that other service clubs have added to our parks and our other municipal facilities in a way that township taxpayers really shouldn't be asked to do. This is a way to extend the reach of our parks and our various libraries.
Ms. Jackson?
In the role of service clubs, I would also include things like the neighborhood associations. And in the instance of the kinds of clubs that Phil referred to and neighborhood associations, you often find that these groups, as a collective, communicate with different departments and areas in the township to help the organization and the neighborhood, people in the neighborhoods to achieve different objectives that they may have. And so as a conduit or as a communications conduit to the township, they often serve very useful purposes of organizing both the township's resources and the neighborhood's desires and interests. Thank you.
Mr. Opsommer?
Well, I'm actually the president of the Kiwanis Club of East Lansing, and so we actually we're just undergoing I believe it's our 8th annual dictionary project, where we distribute dictionaries and thesauruses to 3rd graders throughout East Lansing Public Schools, some of which are obviously Meridian Township residents, and namely all of our programming is youth-based. So we also help host post-prom events so that students have a safe place to go after prom. We've helped sponsor band programs so that students are able to purchase instruments. And then we do have a diverse array of service organizations beyond your traditional Rotary or Lions or Kiwanis. I'm also a member of the Hazlet Beautification Association, and we work on gateway projects. We're actually undergoing one right now for the Triangle property, which is on Marsh Road, and it's bound by Reynolds and Lake Drive up by the lake. And so we're trying to beautify that Triangle property and make it a real nice gateway into downtown Hazlet.
Ms. Piper?
Okay, thank you for the question. What role do service clubs have in the community? My response would be that this would be a way for the residents to have a gathering place where they can support each other with a common interest. This is also a way for volunteer work within the township. So they have a very important role in the community and in the township. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, I think service clubs have a great impact on our community. I've just heard from everybody about all their participation in the clubs, community service clubs that we have right now. And I think our service clubs also could have a role even in our township meetings. If there's an issue that affects them and they want to have a voice on, they're welcome to come and send a representative and comment for our board members to hear their perspective. So I think our service clubs have a great role in the community and could even have a bigger role that would be of benefit to all citizens.
Okay. That's full cycle. So do we have anyone that has additional thoughts or rebuttals? Mr. Opsommer.
I just wanted to add real quick that the township has done a good job of supporting service clubs in their endeavors, and they're filling voids in the community, right? They're filling a gap where no service exists presently. One example is with the Hazlet Beautification Association. Volunteers were actually going out and watering the curbside beds that you'll find at the four corners of Lake Lansing and Marsh and down Hazlet Road. And the township has since hired a staff person that is assisting the HBA in watering those beds with a water truck. So,
Mr. Deschaine?
To back up what Dan just said, the township does play a role in enabling service clubs. The Hazlet Library Move project, for example, would have gone nowhere if the township had been reluctant to participate. Likewise, we needed the Hazlet School District to allow us to use the old Meridian High School. So government and service club and schools need to work together to be a successful community. We are successful because of that great cooperation that exists between the residents and the township.
Mr. Czubak?
Well, after everybody answers the question, I guess I have a better understanding of what they mean by service clubs, or at least what everybody else thought. With that being said, I think they play an important role for a lot of the reasons that people said. I personally myself belong to the American Legion, and I run the high school oratorical contest, which basically gives scholarships to students going to college. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, this brings us to the halfway mark. I want to thank you for your tweets and phone calls. Keep them coming. Remember, so we're halfway, so we've got another hour of the trustee debate. Phone lines, 517-349-1232. Use Twitter or Facebook at HOMTV using the hashtag Ballot Meridian. And this is the second hour to the Meridian Township Trustee debate. We're going to go now to Eric from Okemos with your call. Eric, what's your questions?
Yes, good evening. I have a question for the candidates. I'd like them to all describe their understanding of CATA's BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit Project, and what their position is on the township's resolution to oppose. And also, as an addition to that, what would be the future board's responsibility to this resolution, if any?
Thank you, Eric. And now we've gone full circle with all of the candidates, so we begin again with you, Mr. Czubak.
Sure. So first of all, I'm opposed to CATA BRT. This is the idea that we're going to put a bus rapid transit from the Capitol all the way down to into Okemos. I'm opposed to this for several reasons. Basically, first of all, when I go door to door and talk to thousands of residents, very, very, very few residents have told me that they think this is a good idea. I happen to agree with them. First of all, I think there's a concern for the limited number of stops. I think that's an issue that has not been addressed. Second of all, I think there's an issue for those disabled who are riding the bus. Riding in the middle of the lane from the Capitol down to Okemos and trying to cross traffic to get to where you're going is not a suitable answer. The cost is a concern for me. $140 million, $139 approximately. And I have not seen yet for sure they're not going to look at residents for some of that funding. In fact, I don't believe they've answered it. The majority of the organizations I've talked to have denied it or said against it.
Sorry. Mr. Deschaine.
I support public transit improvements. Numerous millages here in the township have shown that the township residents support public transportation in Meridian Township. Not many people will realize it, but 300,000 people a year get off a bus or on a bus at Frandor at the Meridian Mall. 300,000 people. That's a lot of people using our bus system today. I think we can all agree that the Grand River corridor is often congested and that safety is a real issue for bicyclists and pedestrians. So the question is, what do we do about the safety issues and the congestion issues? CATA proposed the BRT. Now, the original BRT proposal has been withdrawn, and CATA has put forward 5 new proposals for communities to evaluate. That's a good sign. It shows that CATA is trying to be responsive to communities and to the residents. All these plans that they put out there lack stops at Frandor, Okemos Road, Myers, and the Meridian Mall. So even those 5 plans need improvement.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson?
Well, I think the description of the BRT as proposed is well taken care of at this point. And so the other question asked was, how do we feel about the action taken by the board relative to that proposal? And I support the board's action. I see their action as twofold. One is to withhold endorsement of the bus rapid transit as described or described to us or presented to us at this point. And the second is to engage the township residents and the residents in general to study and analyze first our interests in transportation in general and our needs and whether or not they're being met.
Mr. Opsommer.
Well, I thank the resident for the question, and I thought the board's resolution was a little bit premature. I feel as if this issue is being treated black and white. I haven't really heard it come up all that much at the doors, but when I have heard it come up, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Now, with the current plan, I do think there are improvements. The Route 1, which is the current bus system, goes into Frandor. And I think any bus rapid transit system that would be implemented would need to go into Frandor to provide accessibility for those with disabilities and the elderly that would otherwise have trouble accessing those businesses. The Meyer and Macy's stop at the Meridian Mall are presently proposed to move away from the exits, further away from the exits. I also think they need to be relocated, and I think we need stops at Park Lake and Okemos Road to fill the gap in bus stops. So there's definitely improvement, but we should be working cooperatively to get those enhancements and to fix the system.
Thank you. Ms. Piper?
Yes, this is a good concept and it's a bad plan. It's my understanding that it's a designated lane where the bus rapid transit will take place. It's federal money that will be funding this, so the taxpayers will not be paying for the construction of this. But what about the liability into the future? That is a concern that I think the board is one of the reasons why they made the resolution to oppose the CATA BRT. My question is, why can't we give the federal money back to the government? Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Thank you. My sense is that this CATA BRT was brought into the community without a lot of pre-discussion with the community. I think it was just kind of presented, here it is, this is what we're going to do. And I don't think there was a lot of community involvement with it. So in my door-to-door visits, I have heard a very strong opposition to the CATA BRT through our businesses, through the disabled community. Those are the people we're supposed to be serving. So I'm against the BRT as it stands right now. I think there's still room for discussion, but I agree with Meridian Township in opposing it as it stands right now.
And we'll wrap up Eric's question with Mr. Wilson.
Well, thank you for the question. Overall, I still have a hard time understanding it because it's confusing overall as it is. I understand the bus lanes dedicated. Putting the stops in the middle of the roads does not make sense to me, at least in Meridian. It makes it difficult for people with disabilities. Some of them in my family who will have to ride the bus as soon as I have to leave the area in 5 years about. So that has a personal connection to me. As a plan, they've offered some changes in which I'm still having a hard time trying to understand myself. On a new board with me in it, I would personally probably not think it would be the best idea to take an entire lane just for buses in Meridian when we already have too much congestion on the roads with just the cars as it is.
Anyone have a rebuttal, additional time? Mr. Czubak.
This is a pretty complicated situation, so it takes a little bit to explain some things as well. The other issues I've heard about are left-hand turn lanes for small businesses, emergency vehicles making U-turns, there's not enough room. There has not been an increased ridership in quite a while now. What has increased is the Abbott Road run from Chandler Crossing back to campus. And if there's something needs to be done to protect the residents, why not crosswalks? We just built an $800,000 bridge over in Wonk Park. Why can't we do crosswalks over the area?
Much. Anyone else? Mr. Deschaine?
I would agree with Dan, this is not a black and white issue. I think the Township Board, in not endorsing the BRT plan, did the right thing. Enough objections have been raised from local businesses and from residents that they needed to pull back the current plan and repropose one that the Township can get behind. I hope CATA continues to work with the community to help us to develop a BRT or BRT-like program that we can all live with and can improve safety and reduce congestion.
No one else? Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Opsommer, yeah.
I just wanted to add to the discussion, and bus rapid transit that terminology is thrown out there a lot, and the basic premise of bus rapid transit is that you're mimicking light rail. So that's the reason for the dedicated lane, is to mimic light rail for a fraction of the cost. If we implemented light rail, that would cost about 5 times the value of the dollars that we're currently seeking from the federal government for the bus rapid transit project.
Thank you very much. We have a tweet next. Our tweet comes from Matt Kolju. Matt asks, what can be done to support small businesses in the township? And for this question, we begin with Mr. Deschaine.
As a former small business owner in Meridian Township, I can understand the issues and the challenges that small businesses face in Meridian Township. In my time on the Zoning Board of Appeals, I saw many businesses coming before the ZBA with issues, with problems, with ordinances that they were butting up against and needed relief from the ZBA. These are real concerns, and the township staff did the best they could to work with those businesses. Also, many people don't realize this, but the township has a full-time employee, a guy named Peter Menser. His main job is to go out, talk to small businesses, encourage their growth, their development here in the township, and make sure they stay here and become part of our vibrant business community. So the township is doing a lot already to encourage small business. As township trustee, I would encourage that. I would continue that position, expand it if possible, to make sure that small businesses feel welcome and will flourish here in Meridian Township.
Ms. Jackson?
I think that one of the things that the township can do to support small businesses has to do with completion of the master plan. In this document, as it is has been currently developed, we have proposed the establishment of an urban services boundary, and which would serve to focus future development, or at least in the immediate future 10 to 15 years, in the western 2/3 of the township. And so as an assistance to small businesses, we're directing where we'd like development to go and where we would be willing to support that development with other activities that the township can add to development.
Mr. Opsommer.
I think when you look throughout the Grand River Corridor, you see a lot of, you see some small businesses, and then you also see a lot of chains and larger corporations. But we have a lot of small businesses located in downtown Okemos, and that's our DDA district. And one of the issues that most frequently comes up amongst the DDA membership of those small business owners is the parking. So there's limited parking, and right now there's no public parking provided. So if we could work to upgrade and enhance the infrastructure there and provide on-street parking and public parking, that would really take a huge burden off of some of our small business owners there that have to park their own parking lot. And they could actually then sell that valuable real estate to another small business that could occupy it, and we can increase the density and kind of revitalize that area.
Ms. Piper, what can be done for small businesses in the township?
What can be done for the small businesses in the township is to be more business friendly. And I think what is my understanding is that there's a lot of regulations in Meridian Township. And as a trustee, I would propose that we interview the small business owners and find out how can we improve being more business friendly. I mean, you look at Okemos and you look what's happened there. It's like a ghost town. I mean, let's revitalize that. I think the board, that should be one of their top priorities, is how does we revitalize downtown Okemos? So my response to this question is to interview the small business owners to support a better business-friendly environment. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, I believe that small businesses are a very large part of a successful community. And I believe that we need to be a little bit more friendly in Meridian Township as to what it is that they are trying to go after. Listening, sometimes Meridian Township has been known as the just say no community on some issues. I think we need to be a little bit more open to what they're trying to accomplish and to listen to what they need, and then bring that forward, get them involved with the community.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, thank you for the question. I've grown up in a family that's had several entrepreneurs. My grandfather owned a boat store in Oakland County. My parents, they ran a small nonprofit business that they inherited from my dad's father. So I've been around the small business area a bit. We have so much regulation that's cumbersome on these small businesses. I was talking with one of my neighbors who was telling me about a business owner that he was working with, and or that he was at least friends with, and he was saying that he would never do business again in Meridian due to how hard it is to get in. On some of the board meetings I've attended, it can be a problem with the fact that we re-ask questions again and again on the board meetings that were asked already in the commissions. So we do need to be more helpful to the businesses on that. I don't think we necessarily need like another commission to interview and ask them all this stuff. We just need to be able to listen to what they're saying already.
I got to get to Mr. Czubak first, and then Mr. Czubak, last one on the question.
So first of all, I think we need to ensure that the big box stores are paying their fair share in the property taxes. The small businesses are getting hit with the full property tax, while the big box stores are getting their discount for the empty stores they're being compared against. Second, I think we need to avoid the BRT or look at a different plan that's going to work better for the small businesses. Limiting traffic is going to be a nightmare for these small businesses. I think we need to be more open as a township to new businesses. I think most people in the area know that the township has been against business, it seems like. Even though they say they want to develop more, they haven't been as open to that or made it more difficult for businesses. Lastly, we just spent $80,000 for a branding campaign. I think that might be a little bit rich for what I would think. I think Meridian Township already has a good brand, but in that branding campaign, why can't we do, buy local or support your neighbor type branding along with that? Lastly, what does the businesses need from us?
Thank you very much. Ms. Sundland, I saw your hand earlier, and then I'll get to the others.
Yes, and I was just going to say, I agree with the idea that we in Meridian Township need to be more proactive on what do the small businesses need, what do we need to get out there in the community. I think right now Meridian Township is very reactive. The issue comes in front of the board, we vote on it, this gentleman that's been hired, hopefully he can get out there and talk to, in these areas that the Hazlitt Village, the Okemos Four Corners, Carriage Hills, get out there, talk to the owners. What are you looking for a business coming in?
We'll go Mr. Opsommer, Mr. Deschaine, and then Ms. Jackson.
I just wanted to express that I do think the current township administration has been very amenable and adaptive. So we just approved, the Planning Commission recently approved and the board approved a $60 million mixed-use development down by Okemos and Jolly, and that's the first multifamily housing development to be approved in quite some time. And it's a very dynamic mixed-use development, and there's going to be a marketplace in cooperation with MSU Extension where local business owners can bring in their produce and sell it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deschaine?
I would point out that the township, I think, has been proactive. The word hasn't gotten out yet. The reputation you mentioned is still out there. The township is anti-business. That takes years to turn around, but it is being turned around right now. We've got serious work to do in the Hazlitt Village Square area and the Okemos Four Corners area to bring those areas back. Right now they look blighted, and so the township needs to be engaged, as well as business leaders need to be very involved in redeveloping that area together.
Ms. Jackson and Mr. Czubak?
I would just add that in the Township Development Department, there actually is a dedicated person focused on economic development that has recently been hired. There was one who took care of those responsibilities as a part of his general responsibilities before. But I'd also like to point out the PICAs in the master plan, which focus redevelopment in particular areas.
Thank you. Mr. Czubak?
So actually, this is a slight rebuttal. Mr. Deschaine was talking about the change in the board and how they are more friendly. I would have to agree with that because it's just about a month ago I was at a board meeting and they were talking to a developer who was looking at doing a brownfield tax credit. He didn't answer more yes or no, and they just asked more questions. This is the second time he's been there, maybe third, I believe. I think it's just an issue that he didn't have an answer and where to leave from that point.
Thank you. I have those who have not taken a rebuttal yet is Ms. Piper or Mr. Wilson for this question. No? Okay. Our next question is a tweet. We have a tweet from Chase Kazmerchuk. And I apologize if I did say that right, but the question is, how important are libraries in the community? How important are libraries in the community? And for this one, we start with Ms. Jackson.
I continue to think that they're very important in our communities. They serve not just to supply books, but they serve as meeting places and places for families, members, children and families and adults to meet and to discuss, to use, to share resources such as computers and internet access and those kinds of things. I think they're still very important in our communities.
Mr. Opsommer?
I would say that they're vitally important. So we have, despite having a very affluent community, we do have a lot of children that are on free and reduced lunch, which gives you a predictor of how many children are living in poverty and therefore less likely to have technology in the home. And so today, a modern library provides access to technology for children that otherwise don't have it. It's very important for their curriculum and for their schooling. I recently toured the renovated East Lansing Library with my Kiwanis Club, and we've actually been doing grants through our foundation for STEM curriculum that they use and distribute. And then we've also approved grants for them to have iPads that they use for interactive story time. So as the librarian reads, the audiobook actually follows along and a cursor goes down the words. And it's a really interactive approach to, for our libraries to take. And so I'd be happy to support our libraries by any means necessary.
Ms. Jackson? I'm sorry, Ms. Piper.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not going to let you answer it again. Sorry, Ms. Piper.
Okay. Libraries in Meridian Township are just so extremely important. We have a beautiful Okemos and the Hazlitt Library. They're so beneficial to the community. All of the children's activities that they have. They even have a program in Okemos where children read to dogs. They also have tutoring services, computers for residents that do not have internet in the home. There's just so many benefits to having the libraries in our community, and I fully support the effort. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland.
Yes, libraries in the community have always been a very important part of my life and raising my children. Once a week, we went to the library to get new books. We also got VHS tapes. Tells you how long ago it was. And I have to say myself, my reading habit would be so expensive if I didn't have a library. And I'm not quite on board with all the iBooks and all that because I saw so much computers at work that going home and being on the computer was hard for me. But the computer access is also important. So our libraries are very vital to getting our kids reading, using technology. I think if parents, take their kids to the library, it just encourages them. So they're very important.
Mr. Wilson.
I do apologize for coughing. But I thank you very much, Chase, for the question. And libraries have been a long-standing thing in a lot of communities out there. I was walking around LCC, Lansing area, and I saw one of the old Carnegie libraries that actually I think has been retrofitted into a different building, which shows how long they've been in the area. They've been helpful for so much of that time. Not only do they provide the online access so people can apply for jobs or whatever they need to, they provide the books, they provide other services. Say you're trying to write a paper, you can go there to get help. So many services are so enriched in libraries that I think it would be almost impossible to live without.
Mr. Czubak.
I can give you a very quick Marine Corps answer. I think libraries are vital to the community. That's all.
All right. Mr. Deschaine, you are going to wrap up this question for us.
I agree. Libraries are essential to Meridian Township. Although libraries really do point to, back to a question earlier about special millages. Sometimes a millage isn't the answer. The residents of Meridian Township twice voted down a central library for the whole township, much like East Lansing has. Instead, they simply said no. So what's happened instead is community groups got involved, and Hazlitt was the library move project led by Melinda Barr that raised private money, worked with the schools, worked with the township to develop a new library without any new millage required. Simply calling on the great generosity of the residents and the existing resources that existed in schools and in the township government. So it's a showing that millages and extra taxes aren't always the answer. Sometimes you turn to your residents, see what they can provide, and be surprised as we were by the results in Hazlitt.
Thank you very much. Any rebuttals or additional time? Mr. Opsommer?
I just wanted to add real quick, it was eye-opening to go to a library and actually speak with the administrators there and talk about capacity, because I asked, what is your capacity for technology and how many hours out of the day are you at capacity in a library that, with that much resource, was actually at capacity for the majority of the day. So for children that have no access to technology at home, and that's their only outlet, that could make the difference between doing homework and not. And we have an achievement gap in our schools, and we know that. So I would look to take inventory on our libraries and make sure we have those resources.
Anyone else have additional thoughts or rebuttal? Okay, we have just over 30 minutes left in our scheduled program. 349-1232, tweet Facebook at HOMTV, #Ballot Meridian. But we do have a call right now. Paul from Hazlitt is on the line. Paul, what's your question?
Currently there is greater than $27 million in unfunded pensions and medical obligations to our staff at the township. And in also speaking with the township manager, he said he is not making very good progress with 5 unions that have their contracts up for renewal. Would you support reduction in the staff, or do you have creative solutions for this problem that the township faces?
Thank you, Paul, for that question. And Mr. Opsommer answers that first, please.
Yes, I'm glad Paul from Hazlitt actually called this in, because this was one of the reasons why I chose to run. I've actually worked on this issue at the state level, and there could be in the future legislation coming that might aid communities. There are some vehicles out there that are at our disposal, but might not be the right fit. One would be bonding, and that's something that we should at least examine fully. But pension obligations are an issue for every community throughout the state. We're currently approximately 60% funded. This has been an issue since the origination of the pension fund itself. And we need to update our actuarial results. That means being precise, and it means being honest with ourselves about what life expectancy is, what our interest rate, our return on investment will be in the marketplace. And we came under hard times in the Great Recession, and that hit us, and we're going to have to get our way out of this.
Ms. Piper, same question.
Okay, the legacy cost of the pensions is a very serious issue that has to be addressed by the board immediately. The choice to raise taxes on voters, the voters are not going to agree to that. The board is not putting enough funds to fund the pension. So it's a real huge issue that has to be, again, addressed as soon as possible. I've been at the last 2 board meetings, and at each meeting, there's been a lot of confusion as to the treasurer not being aware of funding going into the pension funds. And it just really needs to be straightened out, figured out, and fixed. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, this is a big issue that's coming up in Meridian Township. I do know that Frank Walsh, the township manager, has mentioned that he's trying to come up with like 4 or 5 options to be considered. State of Michigan confronted this problem in 1998, 97, and the answer was new hires are just not going to get the same defined benefit. In fact, the state of Michigan went right to defined contribution for their new hires. So I don't think you should affect any current employees or retirees, but I think they have to look at the combination of maybe a DB-DC, ease into it. There's some concern if you go right to DC, then there's no money coming into the DB. And so I think they're looking at lots of options, but I think the unions are going to have to be flexible.
Mr. Wilson, Paul wants to know if you would, your thoughts on the pension, and if you would cut staff, or do you have creative solutions?
Well, thank you for the question. That's a little bit of a big question, I guess you could say. There is no clear defined solution we can get. Mathematically, you have money coming in, and that's taxes. That is not going to increase, or at least I don't think for the next few years. So the other equation of that is money spent out. And frankly, we're going to have to, I guess you could say, reduce the lifestyle that, if it were a household, a lifestyle, to be able to fund this. It's just like a credit card you could have as a personal person. You've got to reduce everything else to be able to pay that off if that's your #1 goal. I think that should be our goal. We should be taking care of the promises we've already made.
Mr. Czubak?
So first of all, I think it's important to find out why we were in this place in the first place. I know we talked about the recession. It was a big hit for us, which it was for everybody. It was for my retirement, but I left my money where it was at, and it's grown back to where it was supposed to be. So I guess my question is, why are we just finding about this now in 2016? For me, it is just as vital as the libraries. It's more vital to honor your commitments that you made to those people. We have top-notch police, fire, EMS, and admin here in the community. And in order to keep those people and recruit new ones, we need to honor those commitments. We can't walk away from those. So I think it's important that we look at taking advantage of other investment opportunities that we haven't been doing. And I also think it's important to note that the caller said 27 million. I think if we look at it a little bit closer, it could be more up around 40 million, which is a very, very big number, depending on what numbers you're actually using to compute it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deschaine?
I think it's important to note that many communities face this problem. East Lansing, the liability is estimated around 60 million. Lansing is over 100 million. So this is not a problem unique to Meridian Township. Most township employees are covered by the MERS program, the Municipal Employee Retirement System. Recently, MERS changed the rules, if you will. Up until now and ongoing, they tell the township how much to contribute. The township has never missed a payment. In fact, in January of this year, they added an additional $1 million to pay down the liability. What's changed is MERS has reduced the expected return on investments. MERS has extended the mortality rates, and MERS has changed their smoothing rates for calculation. All these things have brought this pension liability issue to the front. The other important change that's happened is it now has to be reported as a liability on the township books. Before that, it was a footnote. So now it's got to be reported. Now we're all aware of it, but this is not a new problem. As for blame, the past 4 or 5 boards have voted for the contracts and employees.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson, we'll finish up with you.
Okay, I see this problem as one with many parts. There are issues about how to stop the rapid accrual of liability. There are issues with how do we move forward with current employees and how we manage the promises we've already made to past employees. And also then how do we eliminate this liability that's not going away. And so I am open to all kinds of possibilities about how we address these 3 issues. Now, I see it as actually 3 issues. I don't have any bright ideas about how to solve any one of them or all 3 of them at this point, but I am certainly anxious to look at the possibilities and make reasonable and responsible decisions for Meridian Township.
Thank you very much. Everyone answered, and I saw Ms. Piper raise her hand, and then we'll go to Mr. Czubak.
Yes, I didn't adequately respond to the question about cutting of staff. And as a trustee, I would propose that we would review the payrolls to see where there could be some reductions in staff, even though we wouldn't want to do that. But that's going to have to be a serious option to consider. So I do want to respond that, yes, the cutting of staff may be a great possibility. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go Mr. Czubak and then Mr. Deschaine.
It was mentioned that we have other communities that are experiencing the same thing. That may be the point, but our community right here is experiencing it, and we're responsible for that. And as a township, we haven't done that. It was also mentioned that the MERS rule changed the rules. I think MERS changed the rules, but what they changed the expected return. However, that being said, when you are expecting 8%, when very few other things are earning that kind of return, now they're expecting, I think it's 4 1/4, or excuse me, 5 3/4, 5.35, something like that.
Thank you
it's
very
much
much.
different.
Mr. Deschaine and Mr. Opsommer. And
We do
Mr.
need
Wilson.
to work with township employees and retirees, but employees in particular, to find a solution to this. We need to add more funding to it. So the problem can be solved. We're in good financial shape. We're working towards that end already. Before we talk about cutting staff, I think we have to realize we are pretty lean already. Many staff were laid off during the Great Recession. They've took on additional responsibilities and are working very hard. So before we talk about cutting staff, let's work with existing staff to find a solution to this pension issue.
Mr. Opsommer?
So the pension fund was actually 53% funded if you go back to 2001. And like I said, it traces all the way to the origination of the fund itself. So this isn't a new issue. It's being portrayed as such by some. But one of the real issues is we can't cut staff. We're already below our 2008 levels. And when you do cut staff, we're going to reduce the amount going in. Staff contribute towards the fund and will increase the liability. So we're kind of in a conundrum there.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
One thing I did want to add is I don't think we would be able to reduce the staff. The staff are giving us great service already. One of the areas we can reduce probably is the compensation for the elected officials. I spoke with some other elected officials in different cities, like I think there's some more rural cities, and they're capped at $2,000 for a city commissioner, while the trustees, I think it's $10,000 almost, is the compensation they can earn a year.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson, Ms. Sundland? Okay. Then we move on to another a standard question, waiting for some phone calls, 517-349-1232, tweets and Facebook, using Ballot Meridian as the hashtag. But a question I have is, in this campaign, a lot of residents have voiced concerns regarding animosity and inefficiency at township board meetings. I'm curious if you share that concern, and if so, what would you do differently? And for this one, we start with Ms. Piper.
I attended the last 2 board meetings, and the one on October 4th was really eye-popping for me. There was quite an exchange with the township clerk and the treasurer. Not an exchange, but actually kind of an attack. I was almost appalled by it, to be very honest. I believe that the key is communication, communication, communication. These board members are not cohesive, and that's not benefiting the community at all. So I think that we have to come to some kind of an agreement of how we're going to respect each other and respect the community and start moving forward with more positive results. Thank you.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, I've attended several Meridian Township Board meetings, and I was at the October 4th meeting, and I was also horrified that we had two board members kind of going at each other in public on television. And I think, you know, maybe somewhere along the line you can get, if we can't communicate, you know, get involved, get someone in the employee engagement or something involved, a little session. We need to agree to not do that at a board meeting. But it is an election year, so the issues, people are hot-tempered right now. As far as efficiency, I do think that at the township meetings that perhaps, you know, a lot of the board members have really good points to make, but sometimes it takes like 20 minutes to make it. I think we need to be more succinct in what we're focusing on and not elaborating so much. I think that would make our meetings more efficient.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, one of the things I'd like to say is it's the role of the supervisor to maintain order in the meetings. I'm not going to point any blame at anyone. The meetings overall with everyone there in the current board get out of hand. And so we need a supervisor who's willing to take control. And then this next board, we need to be able to take control ourselves and not let political rivalries get ahead of us. That's been some of the problem. Is it's a political vendetta, I guess you could call it, where they're attacking, where they're like, oh, look at this, because I've got a candidate I want rather than you on the next election. It's childish.
Mr. Czubak?
Thank you for the question. I think it's embarrassing to our community that we have elected officials that act this way. And it's not just in our community that know that. I brought it up earlier. People on the outside know this as well, and they talk about it regularly. It's sad, and this isn't a partisan thing, as the question was brought up earlier. The current board is all the same partisan. They're all Democrats. So it's a personal thing. I'm not sure what it is. But when I'm elected, I've already started to lay the groundwork. I've already gone around and introduced myself to everybody and gotten to know them a little bit. I would look forward to doing that more. And I think it's important that we have to work together, just like Ms. Jackson said.
Mr. Deschaine, same question to you.
I would agree that the township board meetings do not reflect the residents of this township. Our township is made up of well-educated professional people. Our township board often lacks that professionalism and basic civility. So I think the new township board, and 4 of us here will be on that board, have a responsibility to improve the tenor, improve the openness, and the civility in the township board. One idea that Kathy suggested I like a lot, which is move board member comments to the end. Let's hear from the residents first. Let's not make township board meetings as a platform to launch into a 15-minute speech. Let's hear what the residents have to say, deal with the issues, and at the end of the township board meetings, then board members can make their comments. But let's hear the residents first. Let's deal with the township business professionally, civilly, and be done with it. And as Brian pointed out, stop being made fun of, if you will, by other communities for the lack of professionalism on our current board.
Ms. Jackson?
I think I totally agree, particularly with Mr. Deschaine, about what we should be doing next in our township board regime, I guess. But I also believe that the leadership of the body sets the tone and the tenor, manages the decorum in the meeting, and I believe that we're looking forward to improvements in those elements as we go into the next, after the next election.
And Mr. Opsommer, you'll close this out with this question?
I'd have to agree with the sentiment that's been shared by all the fellow candidates that the board meetings presently do not reflect the tenor of the community, and I know that firsthand going door to door, and I know it watching all of our other boards and commissions deliberate amongst themselves and civilly discuss the issues facing their board and commission. You know, one of the first things that the new board will do is decide how it's going to conduct its business. And so the current board uses Robert's Rules of Order However, it doesn't actually adhere to Robert's Rules of Order. I've staffed 1,000+ committee hearings down at the legislature. I've served on the Planning Commission. I serve on other foundation and service boards throughout the community. And it's not only incumbent upon the supervisor to run the meetings, but it's incumbent upon every single board member to respect their colleagues and to respect the supervisor. And discourse and decorum has to amount to the board and public comment. And I would also concur that moving board discussion to the end would be beneficial.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sundland, I saw you raise your hand. Do you have a rebuttal?
I just wanted to add on, thank you, that one of the other items I noticed at board meetings is, for some reason, it seems like board members want to get on record multiple meetings in a row on the very same topic. So maybe the supervisor can help with that. And then I heard, and of course I wasn't attending as many meetings a year ago, that the same issues came up exactly a year ago. So over and over and over again. I'm not sure what the point is, but I think it's not efficient.
Thank you very much. I saw Mr. Deschaine, and then we'll do Ms. Piper.
Regarding future board meetings, I would say the tenor of this debate bodes well for the Township Board. I think we can talk that before they emerge from here, we'll be able to work together and provide a higher level of professionalism and civility to the township. So it's a good sign this debate is, in my opinion.
And Ms. Piper?
Yes, I would like to address the efficiency issue, and I would propose as a trustee that we have some kind of a work session, because it's my understanding that the board just comes together, that there's no meetings before the board. Now, I know there's an open meeting law in Michigan. If more than 3 people meet, that it has to be an open meeting. So what I would propose is that there would be a work session before the actual board meeting, so there's better communication at the board meeting.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I'm juggling everyone, so I was trying to see if Mr. Opsommer had already had, but you have not, so I apologize. Go ahead with your 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we actually have work sessions for the Planning Commission, and we've actually had them on almost every single Monday prior to our meeting, and then we actually go later than the meeting. And that just has to do with the master plan update and the scope of that work and the depth of that work. But I think it does help build a more collegial board. I think we get to know each other, and it's a little bit more informal, but it does adhere to the Open Meetings Act because we post those meetings in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, and the public is welcome to join us. And
Thank you very much. I believe Ms. Jackson or Mr. Wilson, any additional thoughts? We're going to go to a standard question because we've just got about 20 minutes left in the program, and we're waiting for more calls. 517-349-1232. We've had more tweets tonight than I think we've had any other debate that I've been a part of, or Facebook at HOMTV using the hashtag Ballot Meridian. But right now, what I want to ask is, what are your thoughts on creating an affordable housing market in Meridian Township? And for that, we will start with Ms. Sundland. Ms. Sundland.
Well, I think affordable housing is very important. I think we do have options in Meridian Township. I don't know if we're meeting the needs offhand because I just haven't had a chance to research it, but I think it is important. We want a diverse community. We want people to come here. Maybe they're having a rough time. I don't know about anybody else, but I know when I was in middle school, my family went through a really rough time. My father passed away, and then we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps. That can happen to anyone.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, I don't know too much about the housing market. My dad was a realtor for a bit, so I learned a little bit on that, but that's more on the selling side and buying side. To create a more affordable housing as a community, I believe what we need to do is get some more apartment complexes built and multi-recreational units. Stuff like that does tend to be able to be a little bit cheaper than what a house would probably be as an initial purchase to get into the community.
Okay. Mr. Czubak?
I guess I don't fully understand the question because I believe, number one, we do have affordable housing here. Number two, we do have government subsidized housing here. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, that's your interpretation, so I'm going to let the question lie, and how you answer it is up to you.
Okay, I think I answered it then.
Okay. Mr. Deschaine?
I do have some familiarity with affordable housing. As I mentioned earlier, I was on the board of directors for 3 years for Carriage Lane Senior Housing, which is a federally subsidized housing facility for low-income seniors, and it serves almost 100 senior residents there. We have facilities like Grange Acres, which has almost 400 residents as well, again, the senior housing market. I think as important as affordable housing, we need more different types of housing. We have a lot of single-family homes. We have a lot of apartments. We don't have much in between, condos and places for elderly people to move to that aren't a full nursing home or homes for the aged, but assisted housing in some form to allow people to transition from a single-family home to something that's more suitable for their age.
Ms. Jackson?
Well, at the Planning Commission and in our work with the master plan, we've been focusing on the needs for what is called more workforce level housing. And so we're looking to address the interests and the needs of young families who, by choice or necessity, are not ready to buy the kinds of homes that are in ample supply in Meridian Township. And so we are, in fact, looking for ways to provide multiple family-type housing and smaller living opportunities within, again, the areas where we're looking to improve, revitalize commercial and residential neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Opsommer.
Eric, thank you for the question. I think it's helpful for folks at home if we kind of define what affordable housing means. So if you go to a financial person, they would say that you want to be spending 30% or less of your income on housing, and that includes your mortgage or your rent and then all of the utilities. So affordable housing is generally defined as anyone that makes 80% or less of the area median household income. So that would be our county area median household income. And then from there, you would qualify for affordable housing, and you would calculate your rent based on 30% of your income. So we do have some affordable housing. Grange Acres, as Phil referenced, and that's senior housing. It's Section 8. One of the new things is that one of the new focus areas is not segregating affordable housing, not making a specific development affordable, but making affordable housing accessible throughout the community. And we've done that with a new development down by Jolly and Okemos, where 3% of the units will be set aside for affordable housing.
Ms. Piper, I'll end the question with you.
Okay. As a trustee, I would propose that a study be conducted as to the demand on affordable housing. I think there has to be a social responsibility as to where the affordable housing would be built, placed, and again, it would be on the demand so that there is adequate housing for the community in the proper areas. Thank you.
Okay, so now that everyone has answered the question, anyone have, okay, I see Mr. Opsommer, Ms. Jackson, and then Mr. Deschaine so far.
So I would just add that the Planning Commission did do a housing market analysis, and we found that there is demand that's unmet for affordable housing. And I would also add, as someone that purchased a home here in the township in 2013, you would find most often when you go out and you try to rent that it's actually more expensive to rent a small townhome than it is to purchase a home in our community. Even about the median value of a home would be $180,000. So we are lacking in that area, and we need to do better, and we know we need to do better.
Ms. Jackson?
I just wanted to add that when we talk about more affordable housing in Meridian Township, they're also not just older people or poor people who are looking for a different kind of housing in Meridian Township, but there are people who live in our big homes or retiring and looking to downsize in their communities. They also are looking for smaller homes, and young families looking for starter homes. And so the more affordable housing is included in that definition.
Mr. Deschaine.
I was recently at a Meridian Leadership Breakfast meeting with Luana Simon, president of Michigan State University, and she very pointedly challenged us to develop no more student housing, but to develop housing for faculty. And more and more faculty are coming into Michigan State University, and there's a great need for faculty-type housing that's on the west end of the township, walkable to MSU, and the kind of housing that the faculty would be drawn to. So we've been challenged to develop that.
Anyone else weigh in? Okay. My next question is, how concerned are you with East Lansing's decriminalization of marijuana, and how do you think that this could affect Meridian Township? And this question, we start with Mr. Wilson.
But what I assume by the decriminalization is, I guess, just not enforcing the laws that are already in place by the federal government and the state government for a certain amount that they can have. I mean, I have never tried it. I have no want to. I'm one of the odd kids, I guess. But there are people out there who do, and as long as they don't drive and as long as they're doing it in a safe environment, probably such as their house, I would not have too much of a problem with it. I tend to be fairly libertarian on that issue.
Mr. Czubak?
So first, I think that when you're talking about Hazlet, Okemos, East Lansing, the borders tend to blend together. And I think especially when you're talking about the younger generation of possibly students who are living in the area and going to school but are not from the area, they may not exactly know where one starts and the other one ends. For that reason, and for the reason that I don't exactly agree with marijuana usage, is that I think that a lot of other issues can come with that. So I think this actually encourages or allows more usage of it. That can lead to DUIs or driving while impaired with drugs. It can lead to theft. It can lead to a lot of other issues. So I have concerns with that. You know, personally on a medical use, I have different feelings about that. My own mother is actually looking at something like that for her situation, but that's a different topic.
Mr. Deschaine?
Brian brought up the issue of medical marijuana. I think that's the one that will more likely impact the township. And I think you only need to look at Michigan Avenue to see the blight that the medical marijuana shops have caused. Lansing's finally getting around to regulating those. And the township has been proactive up to this point to be careful with medical marijuana clinics. Medical marijuana can serve a very valid purpose. I had a brother who died of cancer, and it was very palliative for him in his last months of life. However, it can also be used by underage students, children, and it's very dangerous in those hands. So we need to be very careful about licensing and using marijuana as medicine, because it can often be used for other purposes. And in the case of children, that's not the best use of it by any means.
Ms. Jackson?
I think the action taken by East Lansing was to essentially decriminalize personal usage of small amounts, of personal possession and uses of small amounts by individuals. Personally, I'm not particularly concerned about that on the edge of Meridian Township. I think the issues relative to dispensaries and the use of medical marijuana and how that's managed are entirely different. And the township, I'm sure in the next few months, will have to look at how they want to deal with those, the changes in the state laws relative to that.
Mr. Opsommer?
So the city of Lansing, specifically not East Lansing, decriminalized several years ago. Obviously, we don't share an immediate border with the city of Lansing, but I don't think we've seen any adverse impacts from that. It'll be interesting to monitor the situation. I mean, it's always possible that a student who's living in the township just across Hagedorn may not know that they are in a different municipality, and that could affect them, but I don't see it as being a big issue. However, the medical marijuana issue has been a bigger issue for communities, in so much as they haven't known how they can regulate it. The Citizen-initiated Act in 2008 didn't really give communities any guidance on how they could regulate it with their zoning laws and so forth, and the legislature just passed a series of reforms that will allow us to regulate it with our zoning to ensure that it's not within X feet of schools, daycare centers, and other places of worship and other sensitive areas in the community, and hopefully get it out of the neighborhoods as well and make it visible.
Thank you. Ms. Piper?
Yes, I'm not quite as familiar with this issue. It seems to keep recycling with the marijuana. I do support the medical marijuana. I do think there's got to be a better way to market it. So I would want to do more research on the subject before I'd respond.
Ms. Sundland?
Yes, I have to say I'm in support of the medical marijuana, and I think Meridian Township, from what I've heard, has some good regulations as far as getting the medical marijuana in here and limiting it. I do understand that there are forms of medical marijuana where you don't get high, where it's kind of medicinal and it's not a way to get high. I think this legalization is more for marijuana, pure marijuana, and possession. I think they were finding themselves getting kids into a lot of legal issues, and so this was a way to kind of ease that a little bit. I agree there's going to be problems because we have MSU students in Meridian Township and they may be confused. So I think that right now there's still a lot of confusion over what is legal. State and federal law says it's illegal, so there could still be legal issues between East Lansing and state and federal law.
Okay, that was the last for the rotation. Now anyone who has a rebuttal, and Mr. Deschaine?
The same objections I have about medical marijuana wrongly fallen into the hands of minors I would have with alcohol. And I think that's the point. We regulate alcohol. We regulate firearms. In Meridian Township, we even regulate signs. So if we're going to have medical marijuana, we need to regulate it carefully. It's in our residents' best interest that it's regulated, and the Township Board has a very active role in developing those regulations with input from our residents.
Additional thoughts? All right, well, that brings us to the time when I'm going to close the phone lines, because we're close enough to being to the end of our program, and we want to offer our candidates a 30-second opportunity to give a closing statement. When we started alphabetically by last name, and we started with you, Mr. Czubak, and so we're going to go backwards alphabetically with last names, and so 30 seconds. We'll start with Mr. Wilson.
Well, thank you all for watching tonight. Thank you for watching the entire 2 hours. I just thank you for this opportunity. Whether I'm on the board this time next year or not, I've been happy to be able to do the campaigning here and been able to participate in this debate. I think out of all the choices here, you cannot go wrong.
Okay, thank you. That was Republican Jared S. Wilson, and now we go to Ms. Sundland. So Democrat Kathy Ann Sundland.
Yes, thank you for introducing me. And I'm asking for the citizens of Meridian Township to vote for me in the general election. As a result of this debate tonight, I can see where this group of candidates, I think we're going to find a way to be more cooperative and work together. We've got people on commissions, et cetera. So please vote for me in the general election. I have lots of research experience in working amongst parties.
Then we have Republican Debra Lee Piper.
Thank you, viewers, for watching this debate tonight. My name is Debra Lee Piper, and I'd really appreciate your support, your vote. I have a solid commitment to make the best decisions for the people in Meridian Township. Thank you.
Democrat Dan Opsommer.
Thank you to everybody at home for tuning in tonight. It's been a great time. This is twice as long as we spent in the primary, and thank you again to the folks at HOMTV for putting this on and doing so many other, donating so many, or putting up so much of your time during the election to help residents at home. I'm out there in the community. I'm going door to door, trying to make myself accessible. You can visit my website at www.danopsommer.com. My contact information is there. If you have any thoughts or concerns, please contact me. Thank you.
Democrat Patricia Herring-Jackson.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the audience and HOMTV both for your attention and your participation. The election is November the 8th, and I hope that you will consider me for one of your future trustees.
And Democrat Phil Deschaine.
I want to thank the viewers as well. If you stay with us 2 hours, you really do care about the township, and I commend you. I hope you'll find my professional service and my community engagement make me well qualified to be your next Meridian Township trustee. We have a great community. I want to be part of moving the township forward as your next township trustee. You can learn more about me at phildeschaine.com. Thank you again for your time tonight.
And Republican Brian Czubak.
Eric, thank you tonight for your efforts. Thank you to all of my trustees as well. Thank you to Home TV for having me, and thank you to the residents and voters who watched home tonight. I ask for one of your 4 votes November 8th so I can bring honor, integrity, leadership, and most importantly, service back to the Meridian Township. And lastly, let Inella get in bed.
And maybe we should tell that of everyone. But we are closing out. I want to thank the candidates for joining. I want to thank the viewers for watching. As a reminder, Home TV Ballot Meridian coverage is available on HOMTV.net. We'll also be replaying the debates until the election. And we do invite you to watch Home TV's live general election night coverage on Tuesday, November 8th, beginning at 8 p.m. And I'm Eric Sherman. Thank you very much for watching.